What's up, everybody? Okay, this is gonna be an interesting one. Like Nas said, I don't even know how to start this shit. Let me rewind. So, the reason I went to Chicago, it was really like some family shit. Just to hang out with family I hadn't seen in a while, but also. I got a really good friend, shout out to her. She lives out in Chicago and she sings the opera singer, right? Fantastic singer, actually. And so I went to go see her perform. And interestingly enough, she was like, I'm going to perform some, but don't Google it. Like, don't, you'll recognize it because it's a famous, like, hip hop sample. And so I was like, okay. I mean, she's like, don't look it up. You'll know the moment you hear it. So it's Carmina Burana. For those of y'all who are opera heads or music heads, you might recognize this right away. But let me play a little bit of it. The moment they started with this shit. I was like, do it now. I was damn near rapping and shit. You can hate me now. I hate you too. Just the way that Diddy did that shit always killed me. He's just like, I hate you too. And it's like a benevolent hate. So it's just interesting that all this is coming full circle. This Diddy doc, wow. Let me put on some instrumentals. I don't like the way Diddy did Shine with different lawyers. Classic. Shout out to Hilly Hill, by the way. Hilly Hill's done 3 beats for Nas, and they're all classic. At least the ones that have come out. Meanwhile, Hit Boy's done 7 albums, or is it 10 albums? I don't remember. Or is it 50? Anyways, with Nas, and none of them are classic. So, that tells you the level of quality that you're dealing with here. Anyway, damn, Jeru the Damager was right. He's looking for hip hop, and he found out that Puff kidnapped hip hop. Don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks, Puff. They love to cook the numbers. We don't cook the numbers, Puff. Man, you know how crazy it is to watch this documentary? Look, I grew up on Puff, right? My dad knows who Puff is, right? Like, Puff Daddy in the 90s was huge. He really was. I mean, you can't understate this stuff, right? I mean, of course, like someone like my father, for example, who comes way before hip hop, loved the name. Like, that was the thing with rap. Rap had these what we call guy names back home, like how we would call people Napoleon. Like, I have, let's say, uncles, right, that you'd call certain things, Addis Ababa, Napoleon, whatever, Mussolini, right? That's my dad's generation. They were calling themselves that. It's like rap names. So when rap came out, it was like, oh yeah, they liked it. Or at least they liked the idea of the names. Ice Cube, I know my dad loved that. Snoop Dogg, like all these kind of really interesting names that people had. Ice-T, right? The point is that Puff was huge. And I remember being in Brooklyn. I think I've said this before. But sometime in 2018, maybe 2019, I don't remember the year. But because I live close to where Big grew up, right? And I just happened to be taking a walk one day, and there was like, the Source was doing some sort of event honoring Big in his neighborhood, because it's like, I'm literally about to cross Fulton Street. And so I was like, oh shit, Lil Caesar's there. I ended up talking to Lil Caesar a bit, like very briefly, really nice guy. And there was like one other person that I talked to who worked at Bad Boy, and had worked at Bad Boy for apparently like decades. I think they were more on the producing side of things. But anyways, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but the conversation went dark, like I don't even, and it wasn't even like I brought it up. It just went in that direction. And I always remember, man, the guy was like, Puff has done a lot of evil shit. Essentially, he's done a lot of bad shit that he's gonna have to answer for. And I was like, huh? It was like really cryptic and shit. I was like, well, okay. I think it was because I was asking him what it was like, Fulton Street back then, and you know what they were up to, and anyways, it just went in a different direction. So to say that I found the documentary fascinating is an understatement. I really did, especially that first episode. The first episode just drew me in. I was like, whoa. I think to a certain extent, there's a lot, maybe for people who are up on Puff, or maybe live in New York, or those kind of things, or follow sort of like what bloggers and things say about Puff. Maybe they knew all these details, but I did not really know a whole lot. Again, I don't really follow rappers' personal lives. I'm like that. I love the art. I follow the art like crazy, but I do not care about the personal life deliberately, because I don't like to invest in that kind of hero worship stuff. Again, that's why it's easy for me to appreciate Diddy, and I still appreciate Diddy as a talented individual, but I mean, I would never cape for him, nor hang him from the closest tree. Like, it's at the end of the day, they're human beings, and human beings come with their flaws, right? No one is to be worshipped. I don't believe in worshiping nobody. You get what I'm saying? So I found the doc very interesting for that. And there's a bunch of notes here. I'm not gonna go into the super details, because I do think that you should watch it, at least the first episode. The last episode, to me, there's 4 episodes, and they're each about an hour. The last episode sort of trails off for me in interest, but I would say the first 2 episodes, I was like, the first episode I was there. Anyway, some brief notes here, and I'll get into sort of the meat of the matter. So there's not going to be really spoilers, quote unquote, but I just want to give you a general overview of things that I thought were really, really interesting. So number 1, I had no idea that Bad Boy had a co-founder, allegedly, named Kirk Boris or something like that. Never heard of this dude. So when he mentioned there was like this guy co-founded Bad Boy, I was like, who? So that was really interesting. Again, maybe on like Vlad or some of these other places, he might have given an interview and talked about it, but I had never heard of this dude before. So it was a shock to me. And to me, the credibility of the doc, in my opinion, rests on him. Him and another individual who I forget the name, Uptown A&R. He was like, from what I understand, he was like Puff Daddy's like closest like childhood homie. What was his name? Dan something. If I can find the name, I'm kind of Googling off the top here. His name was Dan something. No. Damn. Tim Dog or some shit. Was it this dude? Tim. See, here I am jumping from place to place. Patterson or some shit. Tim Patterson? Was that him? I don't remember. That might be him, actually. So he apparently grew up with Diddy. Like, they were like neighbors, and he was basically, Diddy was like his little stepbrother or something to that effect. I don't know. Either way, those 2 individuals added major credibility to the documentary. I mean, Kirk, the co-founder, called Puff a paper gangster. And I was like, wow, damn. It would all make sense. It's just like Pac, like all that silly back and forth bravado about really nothing type shit. That's some paper gangster ass shit. So the first thing I want to talk about again is the childhood. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. I do think that you should watch the doc, but the stuff about Puff's childhood I found to be very eye-opening, because I had heard that the dad was like a gangster, but I wasn't sure. It all sounded like cap. And so they go into sort of his backstory of like him growing up as a kid, his mom. A lot of that stuff was like really interesting. And what it made me realize was that a lot of psycho and beautiful and great artistic endeavors and things that people have, it starts as a kid. We are like, by the time we're teenagers, we are already who we are, all things considered. Right? Certainly by the time we're young adults. And that's why really I can't stress this enough, but like teaching the kids is so important, because by the time it's too late after a certain point in time, if you know what I'm saying. Like not that people don't change their characteristics, but it just becomes a lot harder, right? And some of these things are innate, and then of course complete upbringing. So I'll just say that I think that stuff with how Combs was raised and that hustler 70s thing that his mom was into, and he like, I think that shit's fascinating. And it's like, of course, that's where the bad boy, and there's a lot of that in there. Anyway, the other thing that I thought was absolutely interesting, and you think is mind blowing, really, is that Puff has been famous for so long, which is wild in a business that people are. Like, it's here today, gone tomorrow type shit. I mean, he was already huge by like 1992, 1993. And this is before Big. So by the time I got familiar with Puff, I got familiar with Puff in like 97. Remember, I told you I started to listen to rap really heavy in 97. So of course, you're hearing Biggie, you can't, Big and Puff go together. Then Puff, I remember when Puff had that Missing You record that was like, again, I was in Saudi Arabia. Actually, no. At the time, 97, that was 1 year I was in Canada, actually. So I remember hearing Missing You. I'm pretty sure it was like on the radio, and I went back to Saudi around that time. Anyway, but the point is, yes, you're right. I remember that shit because I also remember what's that May song? More Money, More Problems. And I never liked that song, to be honest with you. I'm coming up. It was never my cup of tea. But some of these records are huge. And again, they're huge. And you get the sense that everyone likes these songs, or at least everyone's heard these songs, especially at that time when rap was nowhere near as, I would say, visible as it is now. Right? So that's a big thing. And it's interesting to come on, realize the stuff, because you look at it and say, all those statements that people used to say, man, Biggie made Puff, without Big, Puff would be nothing. It's like, man, actually you fuck around and find out that it might be the other way around. I mean, Puff was already a big deal, right? With Mary J. Obviously, I knew about Mary J. And I didn't realize that, for whatever reason, I didn't realize that he was already part with Jodeci and stuff like that. So, Puff was already doing shit. He had big artists before Big, obviously, right? So, anyway. I just think that it's you can see that Puff has that vision, really and truly, for better or worse. But he has vision, and that's better than a lot of people. You'll see in the doc also Clive Davis's, the very famous, illustrious Clive Davis, his reaction to a very known Biggie song. I'm not going to spoil it. You can watch that. But maybe in the comments if you want to put in the comments. It's the same reaction I had. It's like when I was listening to Ready to Die. I heard Ready to Die much later. So I heard this particular song that Clive Davis reacted to and was like, holy shit. And, put the budget down for Big, which obviously launched Big. But I remember hearing the song when I was living in Montreal, and I would go to these underground basement clubs back in 2003, 2004. And I don't think I had heard the song before. And people, they play it and people go ape shit. And I was like, what is the song? And then I realized, I was like, man, I have not heard Ready to Die other than a couple of songs, right? The main ones. And again, I wasn't really into Big until I listened to Ready to Die and especially listened to Unbelievable and things like that. It is, again, when you live overseas, and especially at that time prior to, music being ubiquitous online and YouTube, you're listening to stuff piecemeal. People forget, maybe this is what made us also fans, because whatever you had access to, you try to grab, if that makes sense. So you would listen to stuff out of sequence. Anyway, they also talk about how essentially Biggie didn't really pop off right away, which I think is also very interesting, even with Juicy out. But then you find out what song really took him over the edge. Again, I'm not going to spoil that. You should watch it. But it does make you realize that, number one, when people are like, yo, I knew this person was great off the rip, most people don't know that shit, okay? Let's be honest. There's a couple of people that get it, but a lot of people are casual and they wait for the bandwagon. It just is what it is. And greatness takes time. Nas, Wu, Big, these people weren't overnight sensations, right? They had to put in that work. And so when you think about where we are in an era of microwave-ass music, and people are supposed to just buy into this idea that oh yeah, this person woke up one morning and then just made some hot shit. It's of course, you're going to not get any classics. Everything is fucking microwaved. right? Like, you need to spend that time to build your artistic style and vibe and really let people know that you're out here. So now I do think that the flip side of that, which I don't like, and I've seen this marketed with, obviously, with Doechii and some of these other people, it's like, oh, well, but they were making music on YouTube for like 10 years before anyone discovered it. It's like, well, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, those songs are trash. I don't care about some person working in their basement forever. That's not the point. The point is that to make great art, it's going to take some time, and I don't need to see all the little machinations of your process. But you do have to eventually make great shit. That's just the point. Okay? Now, you have to respect Puff's talent. You really and truly do. I mean, people will say, oh, Puff just jacks ideas, you know. Like, for example, they talk about how Puff kind of designed this idea for Mary J. and essentially sort of maybe not created Mary J. Blige, but was instrumental in creating Mary J. Blige. And it was the idea that Brucey B, Harlem DJ, did, where you take the R&B and you put it over these hard break beats because he had heard it. But again, to be fair, someone would be like, well, Brucey B was doing that. And you're right, Brucey B was doing that. But it takes a smart person to see something and go, you know, that could work on a larger level and actually execute it well, too. Most people are too dumb to see obvious genius. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. And not only to see it, but then to take it and amplify it and actually do it properly, you know? So that does take a certain intellect. You have to admit, regardless of whatever people say about Puff, Puff is definitely talented. Again, from the Puff that I see as a consumer who doesn't know a fucking thing about Puff personally, but Puff seems to be quite talented and intelligent, passionate and driven. And those simple three things is hard. You know, most people aren't even one of those things. Never mind being all three of them shits. Okay? And then to have somebody who has a great voice, all things considered, he has a really good voice, actually. Not necessarily a good rapping voice, he can't rap, but he does have a good voice for ad-libs, talking shit. I hate you too. He can dance. I love that shit. I mean, that shit was endearing to me, man. You know? Don't make me go into the special delivery remix and shit. Not the remix, even the original. Yo, all that shit. I love that stuff. That stuff's amazing. And it really does add to the song. So at the end of the day, I mean, all that bad boy shit is Puffy, as Erick Sermon famously said in this particular doc. And so it is what it is. You got to give Puffy credit. Now, the doc goes into Pac territory, which I'm not so much a fan of. Initially, I was like, oh, no, don't do this. But I have to say that as it went on, I started to see why it was mentioned, okay? Now, Pac has a cousin that is there sort of talking for Pac's side, whatever, who initially I was like, okay, but this guy's not qualified nor a knowledgeable source. Like, why am I listening to this Pac's cousin talk about some shit, right? It just kind of lowers the credibility, especially when you've been interviewing, you start off with the co-founder of Bad Boy, right? And the A&R. And then you go to Pac's cousin. It's like, are we just snatching randoms off the street? What the fuck? Who cares? And knowing Pac stands or knowing all that shit. But I have to say that over time, they do kind of go into the Pac scenario, and it's like, okay, I can kind of understand why they're mentioned, why it's mentioned in Puff, and it's actually a lot deeper than I initially thought. I never realized it was that deep. When people would say, oh, Puff, it was all Puff's fault, sometimes you'd hear that, and it was like, now I'm kind of like looking, being like, this is interesting. Now, it kind of falls into that thing again where I never liked that sort of myth of Puff caused them both to die. I think that's stupid as fuck, because it's like, he orchestrated movements between, these two angels. I don't like that kind of stupid shit. Number one, because it takes away the biggest thing, which is personal responsibility agency. Okay? I'm a big advocate of having personal responsibility and agency. I don't like when I hear people constantly talk about, he did this to me, she did this to me. It's like, okay, but what did you do? Okay? Because yes, that person may have done some terrible shit to you. And you may in fact be a victim in that regard. But then what did you do? You can't just vanish in this whole thing. And I find, in my opinion, people that are always presenting themselves as victims, they are typically the ones who are actually the oppressives, the narcissists, who are typically actually the ones starting problems and immediately playing victim and erasing their role in the fracas. And I don't like that shit. You can't hang on to someone for the lifestyle and then be mad that they're abusing you for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is one of the earliest things as a kid your parents teach you. You don't do deals with the devil, right? I mean, this is basic shit, right? So when someone was like, oh, well, Puff, I came in and Puff was getting head in the office. And I'm sitting there going like, am I supposed to give a fuck? Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's only two questions that matter in this scenario. Is she legal? And was she forced to do this? And if the answer is she was legal and she was not forced to do this, essentially meaning that no laws were broken, then I just go, he's a wild boy, and that's the end of it. I don't care, right? I'm not gonna put my clutch my pearls. Like, who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, man, that's even the perks of winning. Okay, at the end of the day, I'm a boss. I'm in my office. I bring a girl. She's hot. Give me some brains. If she want, again, if you cannot force people to do shit, you can't break the law. But outside of that, if she's totally with it, she's legal, what's the issue? So, again, I'm sure someone's going to be like, you're condoning sexual harassment. I mean, come on, man. No, of course not. Again, it's against the law, right? You can't break the law. You can't hurt people. Hurting people is bad, obviously. Not just because you can, it's because of legal, but it's not human to do that. It's inhuman, right? Let's just say. But again, I don't like this sort of, we have this prude thing that's coming down a lot now where everyone's like, oh, I'm offended. And it's like, well, fuck your offense, man. Like, who cares, right? Again, we're adults here, okay? And adults have agency. That's all I'm trying to say. You get my point. The truth is that most people are seduced by money and clout. So it's hard to take them seriously in hindsight. Like, you come out talking this trauma shit, trauma. And I'm like, well, if I know basically that you'll do anything to be famous, and I get that vibe from you, and I know that most people suck up to people who they think have power and are rich. I mean, you see this stuff in your own workplace. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know how people will suck up to somebody who has like 1/100th of the power that Puffy has in their own workplace. They'll shit on their own coworkers and do everything they can to brown nose some, little boss that's just directly above them. Not to talk about these people who are dealing with Puff, who is a multimillionaire and can make your dreams come true instantaneously. So of course I understand that people can be seduced, right? And that's what I'm saying. So again, it's like this idea that you're just, you're so innocent. It's like, give me a fucking break. We know human nature. Human beings, a fair amount of them, are natural dick riders. Pardon my language. All right. Just some miscellaneous things, just to point this out. The opening sort of relationship, or that they talk, Erick Sermon is in this doc, and the relationship between Erick Sermon and Puffy is pretty fucking funny, actually, and eye-opening. Again, details that I did not know about Erick Sermon's personal life and how it connected with Puff's, but that shit was funny. Also, how Diddy treated Craig Mack, damn. So they talked to the widow, Craig Mack's ex-wife. The other thing I thought was the parallels between Puffy and Suge. They're both in jail now. Both of their major artists are dead, which is crazy. The revelation about who really paid for Big's funeral. I mean, Mark Curry, the rapper, Mark Curry was all right. I actually liked Mark Curry. I thought he had some decent bars. At the time, I wasn't checking for him like that necessarily, but when he rapped, I would hear some stuff and I'd go, oh, okay, he's actually holding his own on the song. For those of y'all who might not know, but he's obviously on Bad Boy for Life. Let's see. Did he get mentioned? Oh, Mark Curry. Dangerous MCs with Biggie. Right? Dun, 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 dun. And Busta. Yeah, man, he held his own. Like, Snoop was on that. So, Mark Curry was not bad. Not bad at all. So he's not some talentless person. Let me put it that way. Who's hanging on? Like, the guy has some talent. Him coaching Puffy on how to rap, it's funny. It reminds me of how Kanye rapped. Like, the way that, and again, you'll see this in the doc. And I was like, Kanye raps like this. Like, it's the same kind of energy. And this is the thing that people don't talk about with Kanye. Kanye, to me, is a worse version of Puff, right? And so it's really fascinating that, the pitchforks are out for Puff, because I'm like, man, like, y'all don't want to do this about Kanye, because, it's, you never know. Again, you never know what you might find when it comes to someone like Kanye, because, anyway. And the last thing I will talk about were the two hardest bars. Let me put it that way. The two things that made me go, where you're like, yes, this, I can understand Diddy's people looking at this as a bit of a hit piece, because there's no way that you would watch this doc and come out with a favorable opinion of Diddy. It's just not possible, right? You're going to watch, like, someone like me who had a favorable opinion of Diddy's talent. Now, that hasn't changed. But, of course, I mean, now I look at Diddy a little bit differently, right? Because before you're like, oh, he seems like a fun guy. He's a dancer, like, now you're looking at going like, I don't know, this guy might snake me type shit, right? So, and 50 did talk about this, actually, in an interview. Let me see if I can find this. Because he actually mentioned this one part, and I was like, and when you watch it in the doc, you're like, oh. Okay. Anyways, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but essentially, the long story short is there's a part in the doc where, and everyone who's watched this knows exactly what I'm talking about, where Diddy is essentially like hanging around Harlem, right? People in Harlem haven't seen him for a while. Diddy comes through, and he's like, kissing babies and all that shit. And then after that, he gets in the car and it's just essentially like, man, fuck them niggas type shit. And he just says some yo, I gotta wash my hands, and they like, it's like this whole place is dirty. And he was just, it was almost like some real hateful shit. Like, he was like, I think he said, I gotta put a peroxide on my shit and boil off all that dirt. And I was like, holy shit. They these black folk, these rich black folk really don't like us type shit. And he's like, and Roger Bonds makes the comment about how he's like, Diddy don't even like black people type of It's like, you only come when you need them type of thing. You only come around when you need cosign, you need credibility. You come and use us, and then you go back, right? And that part was hard. That was a type of moment. And then the other part was the fact that, and Puffy says this, and this is what I'll close on, is that media is the most powerful shit in the world. It's the most powerful entity. And that is a fact, right? And this is why when media make excuses and say, well, it's not really us, it's the people. And it's just like, there should be no excuses. I mean, media has a lot of power, man. A ton of power. So again, when the media chooses to ignore, for example, genocides that's happening in Africa at the hands of Muslims all over Africa, and they decide to carry Muslim, really Hamas, Qatari talking points that are clearly false, not just false, but defamatory, and the leading cause to continue said genocides, like, those people should be jailed for that kind of shit. Really and truly. Like, there needs to be some sort of consequence for some of these news outlets that are pushing literal libels, falsehoods, the entire nine, right? Media is very, very powerful, because at the end of the day, if I can alter how a person thinks about something, I own them. I've changed them in a sense, right? I mean, it's a massive power. The reason why America is the greatest country in the world, all things considered, is that America has the greatest media in the world. And it's not even close. That's just the truth, right? This is how, in my opinion, America took over the world, aside from other things. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, necessarily, because, like I said, I do like the United States. And I think the United States has a lot of beautiful things about America as a whole. It's a beautiful country with beautiful people, really and truly. You know, this is why it's like paradise. If you live outside of America, especially if you're not in Europe, the West, you will look at America as paradise because it's really the only place you can be yourself, you know, where you don't have to deal with secret police and, you know, shitty like Islamic garbage, you know, like stuff that you're just like, you know, like tribalism and stuff like that. So the point is that it became that way partly because it has a media monopoly on the world, and media is important. So anyway, that's why you always have to think when you're consuming material, even my material, but just material in general, you have to consider, okay, what is this person's agenda? What do they want? Why are they telling me this? Is it accurate? Does it make sense? You have to, you can't just swallow things, right? And that's why I love y'all. Y'all don't just, you know, like there are times I say things and some of y'all will be like, I don't agree with that, right? And you'll give your opinion, right? And I might agree or disagree, right? Most of the times I'm tochiRTA, so I'm on point with shit. But the point is that one has to be able to have critical thinking because that's important, especially in a world where media dominates how we think. All right. And on that note, let me know what you thought about this doc. I saw the whole thing. It's 4 hours. But like I said, once I started watching that first episode, I was like, I got to finish this shit. An update for the streets, especially since Nas is coming with a new album very shortly with Primo and Nas, Puff. Man, what a time. Love y'all. Peace.